Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Before we begin the khutbah, if you can inshallah just please move forward inshallah to make khutbah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وأطهر المرسلين، شفيع المذنبين وحبيب رب العالمين، محمد صلوات ربي وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه، ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له، ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأن محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. In the name of Allah, the compassionate, the most merciful, all praise is due to Allah. We bear witness that no one is worthy of worship but Allah, and we bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is indeed his final messenger. The best of speech is the book of Allah, and the best of guidance is the guidance of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those who listen to the best of speech, the speech of Allah, and follow His commandments. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those who come to know the best of ways, the way of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and make us amongst his followers. يا أحباب رسول الله صلوات ربي وسلامه عليه، يقول ربنا جل وعلا معلما إيانا خلال عبده داود: يا داود إنا جعلناك خليفة في الأرض فاحكم بين الناس بالحق ولا تتبع الهوى فيضلك عن سبيل الله إن الذين يضلون عن سبيل الله لهم عذاب شديد بما نسوا يوم الحساب. In this verse from Surah Sad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches the believers through a commandment that has been extended to David, to Dawood alayhi salam. Ya Dawood inna ja'alnaka khalifatan fil ard. O Dawood, we have designated you. We have facilitated for you. We have established you as a figure of authority. Allah designated him as that figure of authority. Jews, Muslims, Christians, everybody speaks about the kingdom of David. And what kind of a kingdom Dawood alayhi salam had? At least this part, Muslims, Jews, Christians agree on. But then Allah said, "Oh Dawood, it is we who have established you as such." And here is the command, فَحْكُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ بِالْحَقِّ. Therefore, rule amongst people with truth and justice. فَحْكُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ بِالْحَقِّ وَلَا تَتَّبِعِ الْهَوَى. And follow not your desires. فَيُضِلَّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. For going on that path will take you away from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then a reminder to Dawood and all people in authority, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَضِلُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. For those who intentionally seek to go away from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ. An awesome chastisement awaits for them in the day of judgment because of their negligence and their heedlessness. In this verse, Allah tells us that authority is not for the sake of self-glory, but rather with authority comes responsibility. The higher the authority, the bigger the responsibility. Because see, subhanAllah, remember, authority really means doing what you want without having to ask permission from somebody else. And as such, people have different levels of authority. You don't have to get back to me in order to do this. You don't have to get back to somebody higher to do this. You have an authority. And the higher level you are, the more authority that you have. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to the ultimate authority on land, on earth. And that is the highest official in the government. Dawood alayhi salam at least represented in this sense. And Allah said, Dawood, your job is to rule between people in justice. The role of authority is to promote justice. And then Allah said, وَلَا تَتَّبِعِ الْهَوَى. And do not follow your lust or lowly desires. Also, moreover, the Quran tells people, sometimes there are revolutions that people want to carry out because of the oppression that is taking place. And sometimes these revolutions do succeed eventually. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the people, الَّذِينَ إِن مَّكَّنَّاهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتَوُا الزَّكَاةَ وَأَمَرُوا بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَنَهَوْا عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَلِلَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses that these people ultimately come to power, then Allah said, be of those. When are given the opportunity, what do? أَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ. They facilitate for morality. آتَوُا الزَّكَاةَ. They eliminate poverty. أَمَرُوا بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. They promote justice. وَنَهَوْا عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. And they eradicate all forms of oppression and injustice. وَلِلَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ. And the end result belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These verses are very timely given the conditions that we are going through nowadays. And I'm going, inshallah, to just limit this to two topics. In the past few weeks, we've been seeing a lot of reports about police brutality. People being killed, unarmed men, most of the time happen to be black men in poor neighborhoods. People brutally violated by the police officers, and wallahi, this is not about bashing the police. So please, that is not the aim of this khutbah. But see, the police are the most visible element of government. Many times you may not see a governmental official for any reason, but the ones that are most visible to us is the police. And what happens is that we see them, and they happen to be the extension, the arms of government, and as a result, they become the most visible to us. And then, how they deal with us almost shapes our image or perception of what we think of the government. So the more brutal the police becomes, the angrier people get. No, you have to watch some of the things that happen, and not all police officers are bad. In fact, statistically speaking, most police officers, they come to the workforce, and they leave after 20 years, and most police officers would leave not even having to fire their gun a single time. That is just the reality of it. Most police officers are good people. But unfortunately, those of them who are not so good, they really taint the image of everybody else out there. So there is the police brutality that's taking place. Young people dying. There's a 12-year-old kid in Cleveland that was killed because he was playing with a toy pistol. People are shot while they're running away, and in order for the police officer to cover what they have done, they put their taser next to it so that he can later on say, you know what, they took my taser away. They put him in an uncomfortable position and they put him in the van, but they don't buckle him up. He ends up severing his back. They chokehold him until he loses consciousness and the man does not breathe and ends up dying. These are the images that unfortunately we have been seeing lately. But see, it's not just that. Let me tell you something else. Something that happens when people follow the hawa. See, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to Dawood alayhi salam, Dawood, establish justice and do not follow your hawa, your lowly desires. At this point, people in the United States, we here in the America, we represent 5% of the total world population. 5% of the people who inhabit the world, they live here in America. Well, here's what's interesting. 25% of the prison population in the world, they are here in America. There are more prisoners in America than there are in China. Even though the number of people in China is 5 times the number of the people in America. How do you explain this? How do you explain that in China there are over 1 billion people, yet they manage to have less prisoners than we do here in the States? And then when you really look into why would somebody do this, then you look into hawa. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, do not follow the hawa, lest you be lost of the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means that you will be lost away of the path of justice. When you look into, man, we've got so many prisoners. Somebody must be benefiting from these prisoners. Somebody must be benefiting from the number of prisoners that we have. And you look into it, and subhanallah, indeed, that is the case. It may be, yes, the biggest prison system in the world, but guess what? A lot of people benefit. Private prisons. You know private prisons? Like the government actually contracts out to private entities, the biggest of whom is CCA. These people are so powerful, they make so much money. And many times when they move to a state and the state wants to, contract with them, wallahi, I could not believe I actually heard this. I read it. It said that one of the conditions is that there must be maximum occupancy. We will have a prison for you that will host, 5,000 people, but the state must guarantee maximum occupancy. You know what that means? The state has to guarantee maximum occupancy. And then you look into it and say, who else is benefiting? The worst of it was in Pennsylvania. A judge was sending kids into prison as young as 12, and there was actually a documented case of somebody that was as young as 10 years old. A kid in middle school made fun of her principal or vice principal on Facebook, and the judge ended up sending her to 2 years in prison. And people just could not believe this. So what in the world is going on? Well, it turned out that that judge was making a lot of money by sending people to prison. And here's what they're looking for. More people, longer sentences. You make more money. You look into this and you say, somebody is really guilty of وَلَا تَتَّبِعِ الْهَوَى. Somebody is being followed, their lowly desires, sending kids to prison. The program later on became known as Kids for Cash. Somebody was making cash out of sending kids to prison. These kids, they go in there and they get in all kinds of troubles. They go in at 14 and they come out at 19. So what happens? I was sentenced for 6 months. The judge gave me, in one of these cases, the judge gave the girl less than a minute. And he said, I had no idea. The mom said that we did not know that we needed a lawyer. And what happens is that somebody benefits from this. Prison labor. Some prisoners, they make so much money, they get 50 cents an hour. That is how much money that is being made. Government contracts prison labors to these big companies, and the big companies don't really have to pay much. 50 cents an hour. The best pay is in Florida, $2 an hour. The average is $1.25. This is how much is being made. But somebody else is really benefiting from this. You look into when people go to jail, then what happens to them? Bail bonds. Subhanaka ya Rabbi. You know, bail bonds, when you are arrested by the police, they take you to jail. And then your options are you stay in jail until you see the judge, or you can get bailed out. And most people don't really have that money. It will take $10,000 to bail you out. I don't have that money, so what do? Get a bail bond. Somebody that will charge you anywhere between 8 to 10%, and if it's an immigration case, up to 20%. So you have to come up with 20% of whatever the bail amount is. And most people say, but why? People make so much money out of bail bonds. And most of these people, it's not the nature of the crime. If you are a flight risk or a flight to public, whether you have the money or don't, you shouldn't be out of prison. But the system is really screwed when your freedom depends on whether you have money or you don't. There is something seriously wrong with this system. See, sometimes when you speak like this, people say, look man, we live in Mission Viejo, we don't go through police brutality, nothing like this happens. Why are you even talking about this? Because see, when you become silent about it, when it happens in Baltimore, the next time it happens in Mission Viejo, somebody somewhere else is going to be silent about it as well. So as a result, we protect our freedoms best when we make sure that the freedoms of other peoples are also protected. Whether it directly or indirectly impacts us is not the point. But if they follow their lust and desires here, tomorrow it might be me, my children, you, or your children. It's not fair for them and it's not fair for us. So we see this and we say, you've got to speak about something like this. We cannot just be quiet about it. And I was looking into bail bonds, something that is known in Islamic jurisprudence as kafala. وقالوا والكفالة من عقود الإرفاق ولا يجوز أخذ المال عليها. See, subhanAllah, this idea of bail bond in Islam is considered to be a contract of benevolence, where the idea is to alleviate the difficulties of the person. So you say, you know what, I know you don't have the money, I will pay it on your behalf. Islam says that you may not charge that person money. Because literally what happens is that you will end up making people being in prison a source of income, a great deal source of income for so many people out there. All you have to do is just ask people who have been to jail and they were asked to bail themselves out and say, I couldn't do it, man. So what happened? You either stuck in prison and then you have to take a plea deal, even though you may not be guilty, it may not be to the best of your interest, or you have to go into bail bond and bail yourself out, and that costs a lot of money. So somebody truly benefits from something like this. So when we see this happening, we've got to be informed about it, enlightened about it. So that when we see these people going out there and complaining, you know, in the city of Baltimore, just until this time of the year, 2015, bail bonds have made $150 million. 150, where did you get it from? A lot of poor people who had to pay the 10% and the 8% and the 20%. Then you look into this and you say, but that is not fair. A person's freedom should not really be determined by whether they can afford themselves out of it or not. And that is not fair. And then what happens also is part of this idea of hawa. We're so happy in the community when the court came out saying that the NSA collecting data on the citizens was illegal and not constitutional. SubhanAllah, this is good news. Now imagine the government has a lot of power. In fact, somebody defined politics as the ability to use power without having been accountable by somebody else. You're the highest authority in land. Who's going to come? Who's going to come? So it said that Al-Walid ibn Abd al-Malik once called one of the scholars. You know, sometimes people in authority, they actually like to entertain themselves. And he called one of these scholars and he said, "Inni sa'iluka fa'ajibni." He said, I'm going to ask you, you better answer me. Ayuhasibu Allahu al-Khalifa? He said that as a Khalifa, the highest form of government, he said that, will I be held accountable by Allah? Now, like I said, this is the person who's just really interested in entertaining themselves. What do you mean? So the man looked at him and he just became quiet. And he said, "Lak al-aman." Said, "Speak and nothing will happen to you." He looked at him and he said, "Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, أأنت أكرم عند الله أم داود?" He said, "Oh, leader of the believers," he said, "are you more honorable in the estimation of Allah or Dawood or David alayhi salam?" And the Khalifa said, "Dawood, obviously, it's David alayhi salam." So the man looked at him and he said, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ قَالَ لِدَاوُودَ. He said, Allah spoke to David and he said, يَا دَاوُودُ إِنَّا جَعَلْنَاكَ خَلِيفَةً فِي الْأَرْضِ فَاحْكُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ بِالْحَقِّ وَلَا تَتَّبِعِ الْهَوَى فَيُضِلَّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَضِلُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ بِمَا نَسُوا يَوْمَ الْحِسَابِ. So he recited the verse for him, "O Dawood, we have designated you as a vicegerent on earth. Truth and justice is how you rule amongst people. Do not follow your lowly desires lest it takes you away from the path of Allah. For those who intentionally go away from the path of Allah, an awesome chastisement awaits for them on the day of reckoning." So we remind the people in authority. I was reading about private prisons. Private prisons, they hired so many lobbyists, especially around election time. They hired these people in order to say, "Look, why don't you promote this? We will come in. We will build these private prisons for you." But by the end of the day, who's going to go in them? Who's going to inhabit them? Who's going to be living there? And remember, these people are looking for maximum occupancy. Can you imagine? Wallahi, the idea is so absurd. That is, yes, I will build a hotel, but I want it to be busy all the time. Okay. But to say, "I will build a prison, but you have got to guarantee me that the prison will always be full." What do you want me to do? Criminalize people even when they're not criminals? When people complain and say that the police has planted things in my car, the police put stuff in my body, the police put stuff in my person, and so on. So when we hear that some people actually got up and they protested and they won, that the government cannot collect data on individuals, on citizens. I've got my private life. It is a right that is being granted to me by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the law grants me that right. Nobody should violate my privacy without me knowing and without me approving of it. Otherwise, it's really not called private. Listening to my phone, reading my emails, that is not fair. Nobody should be doing this. And sometimes unfortunately, we get so silly and say, "Oh, I don't mind them listening. Oh man, if they only knew about the kind of things that I talk about." It's not funny. It's not funny. And the fact that you don't think that what you're doing is criminal does not make it criminal, man. Many times people say the most innocent things, and what happens is that they would still be held accountable, even if it be jokingly or whatever the case is. But then, beautifully Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, if Allah has established you as in any place of authority, then remember these are your responsibilities. أقاموا الصلاة, facilitate for morality. آتوا الزكاة, they eliminate poverty. أمروا بالمعروف, they promote and encourage justice. ونهوا عن المنكر, and they eradicate oppression and injustice. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst them, Ya Rabbil Alameen. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى من بآثاره اقتفى. Sometimes we have a tendency to think authority only comes in the form of government. But sometimes when we are parents, we also have authority. Husbands and wives and mothers and fathers, we all have authority. And the same rules apply to us. Our job is to facilitate. Our job is to promote the good and facilitate for morality, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said. So as we see the people carrying out these acts and actions of brutality, we cannot be guilty of it at home. Otherwise, that will just increase our sense of, unfortunately, sometimes double standards. I think I've told the story of the sister who said that they were watching TV with the husband when they saw a Zionist thug beating on an old woman with the butt of his rifle. And her husband was moved to tears and he was crying. Said, I started laughing. And he looked at her and said, what is funny? Do you find this funny? She said, no, I don't find that funny. But I find the fact that you're crying funny. See, last week you kicked me so hard you broke my rib. Now that somebody else is doing it, it's bringing tears to your eyes. That does not make you a man of compassion. Fortunately, that makes you a man of double standards. When the wrong is done by others, you take notice. But when you yourself, you are guilty of it, we just give it a different name. I was too angry. I didn't know what I was doing, as a way of excusing our unacceptable behavior. If we do not accept it when others do it, then it should not be something that is done by us. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam يقول لأبي ذر يا أبا ذر كفى بك عيبا أن تجد على الناس ما تعلمه من نفسك. He said, oh Abu Dhar, it suffices to define you as something that is guilty of something that is shameful, that you be mad at people for something that you yourself, you are guilty of. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those who establish justice, Ya Rabbil Alameen, and promote justice wherever we are. Very quickly, please keep the people of Nepal in our prayers. People are not doing well there. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ease their difficulties, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Also, inshallah, make dua for the family of Abid Jilani. You heard about the crash in Philadelphia, the Amtrak crash. Unfortunately, Brother Abid was one of the people who died in that crash. And he also happened to be a relative of one of our community members. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless his soul, Ya Rabbil Alameen, and give his family and the families of all the ones who have lost loved ones in that crash patience, Ya Rabbil Alameen. And for the people who were injured, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them speedy recovery, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Also pray for Brother Sayyid Shahid Hussein, who passed away last Monday. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless his soul, Ya Rabbil Alameen. We do have, inshallah, our youth group tonight, as well as our middle schoolers. The weather is looking good now, and I'm almost tempted to say that we will have our barbecue as well. So inshallah, if it does not rain, we will have the barbecue, and it looks like it's not going to rain, inshallah. So we will have it after Asr. Two important programs will be taken at the masjid. One is going to be on May 29th. The Orange County Healthcare Agency will be here to talk to us about substance abuse. It will be addressed both to our youth group as our families. Please plan on it. Please, this is so important. You must attend this event with your children. The other one is going to be on June 12th, and this is going to be about a parent's guide to social media. So many apps, and we have no idea where our children are going, and both programs are going to be between Maghrib and Isha. اللهم يا رب إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا. اللهم فرج هم المهمومين ونفس كرب المكروبين واقض الدين عن المدينين. اللهم ارحم موتانا واشف مرضانا وفك أسرانا وعاف مبتلانا واختم بالباقيات الصالحات آجالنا. اللهم يا رب بلغنا رمضان. اللهم بلغنا رمضان. اللهم بلغنا رمضان وارزقنا فيه صالح الأعمال والأقوال. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. فاذكروا الله يذكركم واشكروه على نعمه يزدكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون.